Welcome to the Books, Beards, Booze podcast, where we talk books, drink booze, and have beards.
All right. As always, I am Bob of Tales by Bob.
I'm the ass of the podcast, Derek.
I'm
Ill-prepared Tanya.
ill-prepared Tanya.
We're actually at Dragon Con.
Oh, boys.
What day does this come out?
Well, when they hear this, we
Yeah.
have just gotten back from Dragon Con.
Okay.
But when we would normally be recording this, we will be at Dragon Con.
I'm sure your girl got turned, got tired, got hot, got in that pool. That's
Got
my hope.
hungry.
Got hungry. Got some Greek. Got some momos.
Yeah.
Buffett.
Yeah. So, yeah, we're going to a nerd thing, and so far all we've managed to do is list the places we are going to eat. So you know that's a typical vacation for us.
I mean, that's. I plan vacations around where I'm eating.
We're well aware, Miss.
Yeah.
Let's go to Las Vegas to get fucking mac and cheese.
Yeah.
And the little caviar topped deviled eggs that
Yeah,
none
not-
of y'all ate, and I ate all of them because they were
deviled
so
eggs
good.
aren't
Deviled
good.
eggs aren't good, and caviar is not
They
good.
make them with like sour cream, and they put caviar on
Not a
top.
big-
One,
not a
I
big
like
fan of
sour
sour
cream, not a deviled egg guy. And I've never had caviar. Like, it might
Well,
be
there
good.
was your opportunity to try it.
Tanya,
No.
I'm going to need you to fucking dial it back, all right?
Down.
Dial it back.
I'm gonna go there by myself, and I'm gonna get more of them delicious snacks.
Look, can we talk about what really matters? And that's the fact that I have somehow gotten more drunk than Tanya at this point.
I've sobered up. I stopped drinking.
Yeah,
I've
well-
sobered up. I've been watering.
All right. This is going to be a great episode,
All
guys.
right, so this week we are discussing what fantasy race do we think is overplayed, and what fantasy race do we think should get a little bit of the limelight. Like, if let's take that overplayed race, cut them back a bit, and allow this race to flourish. And let's start with who's overrated. Tanya.
Elves.
Shit, I was gonna say elves too.
I kind of
Elves.
figured.
Yeah.
Elves.
Elves.
Really, actually, kind of humans. I kind of feel like that's a cop out.
Well, no, you can't.
You have to have the humans, but do you have to have the humans?
Well, you don't have to. But here's the thing: the problem that so many people run into writing races is all they've done is reskin a human.
Reskinned humans.
That's
Yeah.
fair. That's
So,
fair.
like, if you're writing someone, and if the only reason that they're a dwarf is because they're short,
Yeah.
then you've just written a short human, and
Okay.
what's the point? So humans the baseline.
Yeah, get taller,
it's unfair
GTFO.
to expect people to write
Not
exclusively
humans.
stuff that aren't humans when we are humans.
Okay.
you know?
Okay. Some of y'all. Okay.
All right.
Continue. Great.
So
Cool.
elves, and
Fuck
here's my
elves.
problem with elves.
Both of you give me your reasoning.
Because people are not getting inventive with elves.
Ooh, I like this answer, but can Tanya tell me her answer
Yes.
before yours then because
Yes.
of this?
They just seem. I just don't like them as a race. Like,
She's
just
racist.
they
Well-
just seem so aloof and snooty. And I'm whatever. Now, if it's elves,
I'm
when
super offended because I was recently told at work that I'm aloof. So
are you snooty?
I can be when it comes to literature.
Okay, Elvin Derek.
It's
So-
also my race. So
When we do
Warhammer.
Warhammer, he does elves.
I play high elves.
I know you love
elves.
elves, but like, I don't mind elves if they have a twist, like dark elves or some bullshit like that. But just like regular ass, I love trees and eat flan. I don't like those type of elves.
Well, you see, I actually find wood elves more interesting than
Wood elves are probably the most interesting.
than something more like your more traditional like high elf kind of deal. Like
Yeah.
high elves to me tend to come across as the more snooty, aloof
Mm-hmm.
kind. But that's going off a fairly Tolkien Warhammer-esque interpretation of elves. But to be fair, off the top of my head, I can only think of one fantasy IP that really got out and turned elves on their head. And that was Warlord, Saga of the Storm, the card game. All right, there's a card game. It was kind of like Magic the Gathering meets D&D. It was fantastic. It was great.
I know you and Bane really liked it.
Yeah, no. When Visions quit, they were like, we're not going to carry it anymore. I bought out their stock. It was great. They ran into some balance issues, and instead of doing what
Wizards does.
Well, Wizards does, they decided we're just going to reset the game, and it fucked them up anyway. But elves in their world, most elves only lived like a 30-year-old elf is an old elf, and because of that they were very violent, and obsessed with necromancy because their lives were so short. They really got into necromancy to try and make their lives longer.
So kind of the natural. In that case, then a dark elf would be the natural elf because you either live for 30 years and then you fucking die, or you kind of go dark and try and figure out this necromancy stuff to keep yourself alive.
No, it was great. I really liked their interpretation of elves, and that's, at the end of the day, that's my problem. Now, yes, after a certain point, is it really an elf anymore? You've changed so much about it. Is it really an elf? But, God, people don't. Well, I'll say this: World of Warcraft kind of. Blood Elves. Blood Elves was a little bit of a twist, and that was intriguing. Mm-hmm. Some good lore there, but by and large, everyone just makes elves they're either tree huggers or they're aloof assholes,
and they live forever.
And they are always declining. They always have incredibly low birth rates because they live so long. And
show me a fat elf that's not Santa. They're all like waifs.
Yeah. Well, if you got an eternity, I feel like you got plenty of time to work out.
Ugh, I have 24 hours in a day, and I don't do that. No one at this table does that, and we have all the time in our world to do that.
I don't know, but if I was going to live to be infinity, I'd probably carve out a little time to not feel like a piece of shit.
Yeah.
But if I'm only going to live to 60, I'm just
it's one thing, oh God, I feel like ass. But I know that the end is in sight. The heart attack is only ever just around the corner. But if I got to live feeling like this for the next 2 millennia, I'm gonna get my shit together.
Yeah, that's good.
Or maybe, I guess maybe they were fat when they're younger, and then they just get old and bored, and so they just start working out. What the fuck else am I gonna do?
Because I don't guess their metabolism really slows down. I guess it stays pretty standard.
But they all eat healthy vegan shit either. Also show me an elf that sits down with some Chick-fil-A mac and cheese and just goes hard on that.
And again,
that's unfair. No one even had Chick-fil-A mac and cheese back in those days. They only just invented it recently.
True.
Well, that's a them problem.
Oh, have you had it, Tanya?
Yeah, I had it. It fucking slaps.
Yeah. But so when you went there the other day, though, did you?
No, I drove.
Hey, Bob.
I forgot.
We don't have mac and cheese right now.
Oh, because I was drunk and didn't drive my car home.
Well.
And she wouldn't have brought us mac and cheese.
The best part, if we had done this on time instead of some people making us late.
That is
a
legitimate complaint.
I was going to hit people up and be like, I'll buy and bring Zaxby's if everybody's.
Well.
Cheeky fingers with Zax sauce. Oh, those cheddar bites. Damn.
But anyways.
Anywho's. Let's continue to be racist.
So that's my problem with elves. It's not. Because, the whole, being aloof and snooty, you could make a complaint that dwarves are the same thing. And I love dwarves more than anything.
But they're fun snooty.
Well, they're not...
They're not snooty, they're surly.
Well, they're
I think
very...
It's different.
They have it... Well, they both have superiority complexes. Both races are well known for having superiority complexes. So that's not what I don't like about elves. It's just folks don't do cool shit with
Yeah, they're
elves.
just kind of boring.
So, yeah. Derek, what's your answer?
Now that we've shit all over your favorite race.
So here's the thing. I feel like maybe we should answer the other question before I dig in.
Okay. All right, we can do that.
Because while it does come, just trust me.
Okay. All right.
I'm going to take us off into the weeds.
Okay, that's fair. All right. Okay. So, Tanya, what race?
What would I like to see more of?
See, I do have an answer for this.
Okay.
Though.
So, I'm halfway through with Well of Ascension, the second Mistborn book by Brandon Sanderson, and there's the Khandra. And so we got the Khandra in the first book, and then the second book I'm kind of getting more of the shapeshifter, but there's rules around it. I kind of fucks with stuff like that. That'd be kind of fun.
Shapeshiftery kind of thing.
Yeah, that kind of thing.
Bob, have you ever read a book with a shapeshifter as a main character?
As a main character,
'Cause I don't think I have, other than those books, and that's loosely main character.
No, because normally they're bad guys. Normally a shape change is a
Right.
bad guy in a book.
But I mean, I like how, particularly here in the Khandra that we have in Mistborn, he's like, yeah, I mean, they're talking about religion. He's like, yeah, can't wait for the day where we've eaten all of you, but got a contract, got a rule, so I don't kill y'all.
Yeah.
You just give me bones. We do with a thing, but the day will come where we will have eaten you all. And he's just not a bad guy. He's not a particularly good guy, but it's just like.
You remember this book, Bob?
I haven't gotten that far. Haven't gotten that far.
Yeah, I was about to say, Bob.
Haven't gotten that far.
Yeah.
Okay, haven't gotten that far. I said halfway through.
Yeah.
But it's super interesting. Picking up and. I know it would kind of stress you out pretending to be someone else for a long time, but this like gelatinous blob guy who just kind of
it opens up
takes
a
people-
whole
it's
avenue
neat.
of storytelling
Yeah,
because
it's neat.
it gives you just this idea of where
Would they get to keep like memories of all the people that they have shapeshifted into?
Oh.
Some could, maybe some couldn't.
I can think of one.
What?
Shapeshifter from Black Company.
Well, that seems
Huh.
obvious.
Yeah. No, he's a
So-
wizard. I say just a wizard.
But he specializes
He's
in
one
it.
of the 10 who were taken. And technically any of them could really do any magic.
Mm-hmm.
because of the way the magic works in
Yeah,
this
but
world.
they all had their specialty. And Shapeshifter his specialty was shapeshifting.
Yeah.
But he walks around like his normal form is like 7 foot tall, like huge fat guy, real scraggly beard, yada yada yada. But like one of the coolest scenes is they are going to try and kill this guy and assassinate him. And it's like this super complicated thing, and like they got to kill him with this particular Croker's there. Croker should not be there. He's going to die. He's just a man.
I'm just saying, at some point, can we acknowledge that now Crocker he should have been there? He's just downplaying himself the whole time.
Oh yeah. But so, like, this wizard looks like he's about to do some shit and get away, probably. And it turns out the horse he was riding on was Shapeshifter the whole time. And
His mane comes up and stabs into
Oh,
him.
I love that. I
Oh,
love that.
Oh,
it
it's
was-
wiki
Just,
wild.
yeah,
Yeah,
just
brilliant.
shapeshifters in general. I mean, it doesn't have to necessarily be the Khandra where you're pretending to be a person, but just that.
Somebody that can manipulate
it's
their.
neat.
Yeah,
He spent
yeah.
3/4 of the book as a toaster, but the reveal was epic.
Yeah, just that kind of thing. I just would enjoy
Yeah.
more of that.
My answer plays off that a little
Okay.
bit. But
Mine, my first, I was going to say
More dwarves?
No,
Oh, okay.
Because
There's plenty enough dwarves.
There's a lot of dwarves, and while I do think some people do more interesting things with dwarves than elves, they kind of run
Yeah,
as much as
similar
I love
issues.
dwarves, they could stand to get a little less play as well. But Myconids was
Oh my God.
was going to
Yeah.
was going to be what I said, but I thought about it. No, because I just don't know how interesting they would really be as characters. But I read one book. It's a Dragonlance novel that had a Minotaur as the main
Ooh.
character, and it was great. Kaz and Minotaur. And Dragonlance Minotaurs were like a playable race. They were not like the mindless labyrinth living. They were actually seafarers.
yeah, I remember that.
Which really doesn't make any sense. They should be more like manatees if they're gonna be sea cows. But whatever.
Just let it go.
But yeah, no, and it was really great. And that book Minotaurs are like my second favorite fantasy race because of that book. Like I just love the idea of Minotaurs. They should get more play as a civilization, not as I'm a guy in a maze.
Yeah.
So, both of your answers kind of, I feel like I could fold into my answer.
Okay.
Which maybe mine's a little too broad, but
Hit me with it.
it stands. I feel like it's still. We just need more non-humanoid main.
Yeah,
characters.
I think maybe when I said I'm tired of humans, it's more of give me something that's not human-y.
And it's not even necessarily
Maybe.
look, humans have their purpose in these stories, but my thing is
They're us.
I've
They're our
read
stand-in. Yeah.
well, this is a fantasy setting.
Yeah.
I think it's important. We have these amazing magical creatures. Why are we not using them as viewpoint
Why
characters?
not a chimera as a viewpoint character?
Or a dragon.
Or a hippogriff, or a griffin.
When I was growing up, one of the
Griffins.
series that I read was a griffin. The griffin was was one of the main characters. I still look on that incredibly fondly, and it's why griffins are probably my favorite non-humanoid thing in any fantasy anything.
Yeah.
Like I love so like just the idea of we have all of these mystical critters that are intelligent that have their own cultures. Why can't we have more stories? And maybe they're out there and I just don't know.
Well,
Yeah.
and hey, you know what was arguably the best side character in
The cat?
Kings of the Wild?
Oh.
Oh.
The Etten.
Oh.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, the two.
Oh, poor Etten.
Yeah. No,
Gregor and
yeah,
whatever
that
his
he
name
talked
was.
to his blind brother and described like that
Yeah,
was
those were great.
That was a great character.
The cat in
in Aeronauts Windless,
Yeah.
Little Mouse.
Little Mouse.
Yeah, and-
Literally nothing else of that book. Just the cat, Little Mouse.
Jim Butcher is going to be at
Dragon
Con.
at
I'm not surprised.
There is a panel that is an hour with Jim Butcher.
I will get like if he has a Q&A, I will pay
That's-
you to go and
that's-
ask him when the next fucking book of that series.
That's
comes out.
what I mean. That's what it is. My understanding is it's an hour of Jim Butcher talking about what he's got going on. I guess for questions and whatnot.
Are you gonna consider going to?
I did check it, but a lot of those things have such long lines. I'm gonna investigate the line situation, and I would be interested. I actually there's a plug brother of mine in Pensacola that Jim Butcher
Is his dude.
favorite author, and he was
Maybe
like,
he'll go.
Well, no, he's not going to DragCon,
Oh,
but he last year he's like, dude, I'll pay you to go. I'll give you the money to go get an autograph. And I was like, I've been to DragCon like 6-7 years now. I've never once been to the autograph alley or anything. I don't even know where it's at. 'Cause I never go get autographs. 'Cause you have to pay. You have to pay for the autograph.
Yeah, but if there are authors in there, I would.
Oh,
I mean-
you know, there's a ton of Brandon Sanderson's all over. He's got like 3 or 4 different panels. This
I don't
year.
want to talk about it.
There's a whole like Cosmere
Yep.
panel.
Yeah.
There's a panel on like talking about the last Wheel of Time book that Brandon Sanderson did. So there's got a whole panel on it
With Brandon Sanderson there.
With
By
him
the way,
there.
I would like to point out that I was on Twitter and accidentally had some of those books that I had not read yet spoiled to me, and I was kind of salty.
Well, just do a Bob and forget about it.
I
Okay,
will, but I'm going to
so-
spoil it for Bob real quick, just because. You
Well,
remember-
I read Wikis
all
on
of
what
them?
happened.
Huh?
I read Wikis on what happened.
Okay, well
It's been a while, though.
don't tell me,
Okay.
but you know the character Varen,
Uh-huh.
when she does the reveal that she can lie.
Okay,
Apparently
I
that's
was
a
gonna
big deal.
I was gonna read these.
You're not trust me on this.
Okay,
There's
cool.
50,000 characters in that book.
Yeah,
You will
this
not
is,
remember
this
the
is
one I
War
just
and
said.
Peace of fantasy.
Okay.
It's amazing, but also just let it go, Bob. I
Oh,
appreciate
all
it.
right, so
Okay, so you want more non-humanoids?
no, humanoids, but like a good insect folk kind of deal, like a Thrykean,
Yeah, I mean,
something like that. or
like
just-
honestly, it mostly just stems from like griffins. Like
Yeah.
they're amazing. Why do we not have more griffin stuff?
I dig
Because
it.
they're super interesting and they're strong, but they're not so strong that you can't like having a dragon as a main character.
That's
tough,
Well,
in my
dragons
opinion.
I feel like dragons have been used. They're
I'm
normally,
sure they
they're normally
have,
shape
but-
changed into human form.
like dragon
Right.
kin,
and then they get revealed to be Dragonlance actually had a bunch. Dragonlance had Dragonborn
Right.
basically as main characters.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, no, I think I think why you don't see more of it is hard to write. I think because again, fantasy's so bad about like, oh, I've included this race, but really it's just a reskinned human. It can be hard. It can be like if you're trying to write something that's so different from humans, it can be hard to read, kind of deal. If that see what I'm saying? It's like if you're trying to write them so different, it can be tricky doing that and making it still be readable. Like, I'm not saying it's impossible by any means.
my
but-
whole thing is like I don't even care. Like I don't personally ascribe to they're too human. That doesn't bother me.
Yeah.
Because if they're intelligent enough to be able to talk in human form, like they're gonna have at least similar thought patterns. So the idea of them being similar in some ways makes perfect sense to me. But them building their cultures differently because of the forms that they
Yeah.
have makes perfect sense to me, and I would like to see more of that.
Yeah.
But-
So, what race is overplayed, Derek?
Okay, so this is where things go sideways because I'm just going to start talking.
Okay.
All of them. I don't like traditional fantasy races.
Oh yeah.
I'm not a traditional fantasy guy. It's not my thing.
Okay.
I
Elves and dwarves and orcs
They-
and
like, I-
halflings and shit.
and here, right, I don't like them that much, but at the same time I do, so it's a weird thing. And where we're going to differ, I think, is because when you were talking about elves, you don't like them because no one has twists on them. I don't like the twists. If you're
Okay.
going to use them, they should be in their purest form, the way they were built to be. But I feel like too many people, or some of the instances I've seen, take them and then try and change them, and they're not really changed.
Yeah.
And then it's like, okay, well, why are you using it then? Or if you're going to make it so different, but then still call it an elf or a dwarf or something, then what's the point?
Yeah.
Like, you're using
at
it,
what point is a dwarf no longer a dwarf?
right? And you're
Yeah.
using it as fantasy shorthand to like just make it where you don't have to come up with these things. I'm like, well, what's the point of that? Either use elves as elves are, or make a
your
new
own
thing.
thing. Yeah.
Because like I prefer the stories where you make your own thing. And if you use the name, it's going to cause me to go
Yeah.
back to what I already know they are. And if they're not that thing, name them something else.
It's just
Yeah,
confusing.
that's
Yeah,
fair.
I get
No,
that.
that's-
I get
And
that.
that, and
That's
that
a fair
bothers me a
point.
lot.
That's a fair
So,
point.
Yeah.
so I prefer where you come up with your own thing, like in Wheel of Time, since we already mentioned that. They have Trollocs and shit
yeah.
like that. They don't have giants or orcs or anything like that.
Yeah.
What was it? The Spellmonger, the Spellmonger book that I've
Which
read.
I have the first one. You know, those are all on like KU, I think.
That's where I think I got the audiobook.
I got
though.
the first one on my.
You should
KU.
read that sometime. But like that, they use.
I want
Gob?
to read that because much later in the series, apparently, people will occasionally ask on the fantasy server, like, I want something that's more about like someone like managing a castle kind of deal. And apparently, like the later series, it turns much more into him like running a country kind of deal.
Oh, the first book,
So-
he's running a siege. Like he's maintaining he's fighting off a siege.
right.
Like,
So I'm intrigued by the series.
But-
I'll get to it.
but in this book, they have goblins, but they're not fucking goblins at all. Like
Yeah.
they're just so not goblins, but they still call them goblins.
And it's kind of off-putting.
yeah. So it's just like name them something else, bro. Like,
Yeah.
You
No,
don't
that's-
need to use that.
Yeah.
So that's a big problem for me. Also, like when it comes to fantasy races, I've seen too many times where people use it as a stopgap or like a filler thing,
Yeah.
a shortcut, and it's the whole point of or not the whole point, but one of the strong points that fantasy has is the world building. World build, bro.
Yeah.
Like this is
Don't-
your thing.
Don't,
This
Yeah.
is your
don't spend
world.
so much time building the world to then go lazy on the races.
Yeah.
get that.
Especially
Yeah.
since sure there's a lot of things going on in the world around you, but like don't you think that the specific cultures and races should play into that?
Yeah.
So why would you shortcut that and then go wiki wild and everything else?
So like if you're trying to get a traditional novel published, like, you know, it's like 90,000 words is kind of or like your sweet spot. But if you're trying to get a fantasy novel published, like first time novelists, like they allow up to like 120, 130 for first time novels, which you don't typically get for regular novels. But that's because
World building and yada yada.
they know that you're going to have to spend chunks of time explaining the world and yada yada yada.
Mm-hmm.
They're giving you 30,000 words to play with, basically. Mm-hmm. Fucking play with it. You know?
Yeah, but I mean that's just what I always come back to with that, and like with elves and dwarves and things like that. Like, and it was I understand you talking about taking it in a different direction when you were talking about elves or something like that. It was like they have a defined set of
Yeah.
things that kind of build like.
This
allude-
is an elf,
This
yeah.
is an elf. They are.
Well, you know, and I think I'm going to change what I said. I think you have changed my mind. Like I agree with you because I think my problem was the bulk of the fantasy that I read now is not your high fantasy with dwarves and elves and stuff like that.
Right.
So when I'm reading fantasy, it tends to be not your traditional old school fantasy. So I'm reading new quirky things. I don't want traditional elves in there. I want to spin on it, but really, no. I want something.
You want
fresh.
something not an elf.
Yeah, I
trying
want
to
something
be,
not an elf. Is
Yeah.
really what I'm
like,
wanting.
Yeah,
Yay,
yeah.
victory for Derek! But
Yeah.
no, that's the thing that I was thinking of when you
Oh, yeah.
proposed this idea. The first thing that I started thinking of is just because it's the reason that I don't like a lot of D&D based stuff
Yeah.
because it feels like you're using it feels lazy.
Yeah.
Like it feels like you're just like everyone knows what an elf is. Everyone knows what this creature is. Everyone knows. And then...
Well, and so this comes up kind of on a related thing. This kind of comes up on the fantasy subreddit too, is talking about how like so much of fantasy kind of defaults to medieval European as the default setting, and some people are like, well, that's just what people know. But other people are like, well, that's kind of lazy, like yes,
that's where those fantasy writers lived.
Well, kind of the two arguments are is like, well, that's kind of lazy, but the other people are like, well, I can spend less time world building because people understand medieval fantasy, so I can spend less time on some of the world building to spend more time in other places.
Other parts.
And so I can see both sides, and I don't think there's a winning side to this argument. I think it's a instance by instance.
Mm-hmm.
There are some things is like, well, this is fucking lazy medieval fantasy, when if they had spent a little time, they could pick a different setting, spend a little time with it.
You could have had a Jade City versus setting it in
Jade City could have been set in New York with the mafia.
Womp womp.
And it would have still been a good book,
but it's so
much richer for the interplay of this fantasy thing
right.
That it did.
But and the issue I have with that is like, okay, so the instance of using medieval Europe or whatever for your basis, or using elves and dwarves, I think my problem is if you used medieval Europe as it is, I'm okay with it. But when you take elves and dwarves and then you try and change them just a little bit and then say that they're not the same thing, bullshit, they're the same thing. So if you're going to do that, go with the spirit of what those races are and use it the way they should be used. So like, that's my issue. I feel like.
Well, I just think that like, to a degree, using traditional medieval and the traditional fantasy races, it's not necessarily lazy, but it is a shortcut. You don't, as a like, if I'm writing, I don't have to think hard if I'm writing an elf or a dwarf, like, because I don't have to sit. I know I don't have to sit there and write an explanation of what a dwarf is about.
And as a reader, you don't have to think about it too.
Exactly. So
unless you change things about them.
Yeah.
And then it doesn't. Then what's the point?
Right. Well, what's the point can be, well, do you have a point? If you're just changing it just to change it, but if you're changing it because you have a point, like maybe you're writing some sort of like satirical fantasy, and it's like, so dwarves, you're changing dwarves to represent the 1%, and there's something about them, blah, 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 satire, yada, yada, yada. All right, if you have a point to it, cool. But if you're just changing them just to change them.
I hate when people change things just for the sake of changing them.
Yeah. No. All right, Derek.
Thought-provoking.
You've won one.
One? How dare you, sir?
One.
Compelling argument made.
I feel like I 100% agree with you. Like,
that's a rarity.
Yeah,
very rare.
No, well, like I didn't put a lot of thought into this, and I didn't really look at my reasonings behind what I was just like, oh well, fuck, man, fucking elves, man. Every elf you read is always exactly like every other elf you've ever read. But I didn't really think about really why I didn't like that.
Yeah, and see, this is something that I've been thinking about since high school, because I remember in like 10th grade, one of my friends asked me why I was writing a story. They were writing a story. They were using elves and dwarves. I was not, and they're like, why don't you just use dwarves and elves? And I was like, because. And then it's just started this conversation in my head that I've been having for years about why I don't use them and why I prefer worlds that entirely build their own races and societies and stuff like that. And
so are we going to end this episode by quickly building a fantasy race?
I mean, do you...
Was that what we're doing? Tanya?
No.
How many arms and legs does it have?
7.
It's got to be even numbers.
No, it doesn't.
Sicko.
It's got a real big schlong.
7.
I fucking can't. It's got to have even numbers.
They've got 3 big arms and then like one little tiny pocket arm.
Oh my god, it's an Athak. We don't talk about Athaks. They killed Derek's.
Oh god. Okay.
It has a 7th arm.
Okay, so it's 4 legs, 3
Ooh,
arms.
Yes.
No, just kidding. Wait. Ooh, even better.
got
The
an idea.
odd number one is really kind of just like laid in their spine, kind of like it'll just come and it's a grabber.
Could it be a tail?
No, it's an arm. I'm thinking like a scorpion tail, but with a grabber, but it's a hand.
Okay.
Who doesn't need a spare hand? They can
Okay.
pat their own back.
4 legs, 2 arms with some sort of weird
A gopher
arm.
grabber.
Back thing.
back thing.
Back arm thing.
Okay, Derek, what kind of skin does it have? Like what kind of hide? Is it like scales or
no.
fleshy,
I,
furry?
I think it's kind of like a bull's.
Bull. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So we're dealing with a mammal.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. I'm going to say that it doesn't have an attached head like ours. The head is kind of set in its chest.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Ooh, creepy.
So do they take like this arm appendage thing and like wrap it around for like extra protection? When
Maybe.
It's fighting?
Ooh,
Maybe.
Maybe it reaches down and covers its face for protect. Like maybe the backs of its hands have like
Like some
Like
kind of
calluses?
something.
or like bone, like almost
Carapace kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so it can cover its face.
Hey,
for protection.
we can change this into carapace instead of.
Well, no,
I like it being a
well,
soft,
no,
fleshy
think-
thing that has to have hard things to
Yeah,
protect
well, think
itself.
about like how dogs on like their knee, their back of their elbows, they kind of have that like little like
Callus.
callus kind of deal. Maybe it's just like a heavy callus, or maybe it's like bone, like almost
Could be
like hoof.
calcified bone.
Well, I mean,
calcified
that's
bone,
what the
yeah.
dinosaurs had.
Yeah, calcified bone on the backs of its hands. Yeah, to cover its face when it like charges at people.
I'm kind of into that.
Love
Is
it.
it a carnivore, omnivore, or herbivore?
Irby. No, Omni.
You go with
Omnivore?
Omni.
That's
yeah.
just-
Omnivore?
Yeah.
Okay. And is
Heavily leaning towards meat, but it'll graze if needed.
okay. Is it? and
It
how-
doesn't like to go with the grazing if it can avoid it because it's got 4 legs and people insult it by calling it like a cow and shit
Yeah.
all the time. So they're like, fuck that.
Well, and
noise.
plus, like his head is in his chest. It's a lot harder to
Yeah.
graze. So they don't graze on the ground. They eat like trees,
Tree
and
limbs,
shrubbery,
yeah, shit like
because they
that,
can't
yeah.
really like
Ooh,
put their face to the
ooh,
ground.
Well, they can, but it's super dangerous because
Maybe
they can't see where anybody's
that
coming at
arm
them.
on its back is longer,
Feeds them.
so it can reach up.
Ooh,
Into
like
higher
a old
branches.
giraffe tongue.
Yeah, like higher branches and reach
Yeah.
down.
They can do whatever they want with the
Yeah.
extra hand. Who doesn't need an extra
Yeah.
hand?
Okay, how smart is this? Is
Well,
it?
they get offended when people call them cows.
Can it
so.
speak language?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, and obviously its own language. You
Yeah,
know?
yeah.
I think it. Okay.
I don't think they have like functioning government.
What if they don't have? They can't
Vocal
speak.
cords?
Maybe they don't have like a vocal cord
If
apparatus.
you pull a kinku at me, I'm
But
throwing
they,
this beer.
they,
at
they
you.
do sign language, but they're hard to communicate because their sign language
Involves
involves
3 hands.
So it's hard to
Yeah.
communicate with them
Love it.
unless you can do hand
Love
talk.
it.
That also is why they're
Ooh.
very warlike because once combat starts, you're not going to stop talking or stop fighting long enough to use all 3 hands to tell somebody else something.
Yeah.
So you just fight till they're fucking dead.
Kind of
Yeah.
reminds me, like maybe they do like secret hand things, kind of like what we saw
The
in
Adem.
the Adem. What was that, Italian? What,
No,
what
uh,
book were we reading with that? I don't. Oh,
No,
fucking Name of the Wind.
Yeah.
Sorry, I don't know, bitch. Well, that one book,
Yeah.
I mean, technically it was Wise
or
Man's
like
Fear,
thieves,
but
or thieves can't,
Yeah.
you know, like finger
something
talk.
like that. You know,
Yeah.
like just like they can communicate secretly, but then like yeah, they have. Ooh,
Yeah,
I love
they
this.
can talk with humans, but they think that we are
They
like,
talk.
Stupid. They have to baby talk to
They
us
have to
because
baby
we don't have the
talk.
third hand.
Yeah.
exactly. Just like the Adem, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, I like it.
Yeah.
All right.
I love
Yeah.
this.
Cool. And I'd say that they're kind of nomadic plains.
Yeah, I'm into the track.
They're Genghis
yeah.
Khani.
Well, we do like the fact that they were eating. Maybe they kind of occupy the space like between like the plains and the forest. Like they're not deep forest, but they kind of occupy like they do.
Well, they
like,
can't be in the deep forest because they don't have a neck to turn. So
That seems
Yeah.
very dangerous.
it's very dangerous. So they prefer to be in the plains, but they'll go to like a tree line because plains.
Fruits are delicacies to them
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
they're very dangerous to have to
Yeah.
go and
Yeah,
get.
yeah, yeah.
Well, maybe this plain that they live on does have sporadic trees, like a boab tree, like those big,
Mm-hmm.
like Madagascar weird looking trees. That has a fruit on it, and like, so there are sporadic trees that
Mm-hmm.
they feast on. Okay, I'm with it. Ryan, superfan Ryan, is an artist. He should draw this for us.
I'm thinking that they're predominantly like brownie red in color.
Okay.
They're like dark gingers.
Do they
I
have
think-
hooves or do they have feet?
They have
or-
hooves. I think they have hooves, and their hands are almost like the backs of their hands are like almost like hooves. Like I could kind of envision like that they can turn their hands down
And be knuckled.
and be knuckled like a hoof almost to kind of save their fingers.
Okay.
Like
also,
giraffes
I'm
or,
also thinking I'm kind
gorillas.
of viewing them like lions in that there's typically just like one male
And a gaggle of ladies who have to do all
some,
the work.
and some females.
Now,
kinda
do you-
deal.
do
Like,
you
but
look at
because
it-
the males kill each other. They're very territorial.
Yeah, super aggressive.
Well, I think it
Super
just
aggressive.
makes sense because once they start fighting, they can't stop.
Yeah.
Because you don't just stop and try
You
and
can't
talk.
negotiate. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Your hands are
I
busy
like this.
wielding weapons.
I like this. We
But
don't
I also
have-
feel like in that sense, you also have a very prominent place in your harem
Yeah.
for a woman speaker because she's the person that can talk for you while you're fighting.
Yeah.
So maybe they can stop the fight.
Yeah.
Like
Because
like,
they're
like
negotiating.
ladies are wont to do.
Because-
Dudes are fighting. Chicks are on the side. Like, dude, okay, let's figure
Yeah.
this out.
I like this. Do we have a name for it? No. Fuck no. We'll come up with a name for it. Unless we got a name. Anyone got a name? Corim. The No, we don't have a fucking name. We don't have a name.
Well,
for
I tell you what,
Ryan?
Ryan, when you draw it,
When
you put
draw
a name
it,
at the top.
Put a name on it, or talk to me and we'll come up with a name. Yeah. So yeah, that was fun. Yeah. See, there we go. God, fantasy writers, we just gave the world the next Name of the Wind. I mean, we basically wrote it for them. So if you don't become a rich fantasy author after listening to this podcast
I just don't know what
episode,
you're
just
doing.
not trying.
Do
Yeah.
they use tools
Uh,
as like weapons?
I'd say simple tools. Like I envision them like they don't wear clothes, but they do wear like not a fanny pack, but like a pouch, like
Satchel.
satchel kind
Over
of
their face with their no neck. How are they wearing
Oh,
Yeah.
fanny packs. Maybe they do wear fanny packs. They wear basic.
saddlebags?
Yeah.
Well, it'd be
They
hard
wear
to be hard to reach.
That's what they have the extra hand for.
But that'd be reaching back.
It's flexible.
It's an
I-
impressive
I like-
limb.
I like a fanny pack. I like a fanny pack. I like the idea of them reaching in and rustling through their fanny pack.
Do they just have pouches? Are they just kind of like low key, kind of
they
marsupials?
marsupials?
I like them being marsupials.
I'm with them being marsupials, and
Okay.
they have a pouch.
Okay.
That makes a lot more sense to protect the babies because they're moving
The
around.
the woman's pouch maybe is more underslung, and the male pouch is kind of more
Chesty?
well, not chesty, but like maybe more on the belly,
Okay.
and the women's pouch is more underslung.
All of them have dad bods because they have that belly.
Yeah.
Because
Oh, I
it's-
love this. I'm thinking like, okay, imagine a hot dog with a face mushed on the front with some arms coming out and a pouch under the bottom. It's
Why
in my
must you
head.
ruin everything?
This is what I imagine in my head is they look kind of like hot dogs with a scorpion tail and a
God,
Thomas the
I-
Tank Engine face on the front.
I had none of that. I had
You're
none
the
of that.
worst.
But I could imagine like maybe the
so
men.
they walk around like centaurs?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they're
Yeah.
so a stand-uppy
Yeah.
hot dog.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, I was thinking like a
Like a
long
centaur.
Yeah,
long
because that's
hot
why they
dog
got the
with all
four-
the hands.
They got four
Four
legs,
legs,
and but when they're really trying to go fast, they lean forward and
put
do
their hand
Gallop.
and all
Okay.
six.
Okay.
And they gallop with all six and then have their face covered with
Yeah.
their.
Oh, okay. I was thinking more
Yeah.
like Thomas the Tank Engine face with like hot dog body with all the little critter like
Are you trying to ruin this
Skeleton
pure
legs.
amazing idea we just came up with?
with
Wow.
scorpion tail with
So
their
I've
Do they have
kangaroo
horns?
pouch.
figured out when we're doing this with you, you're allowed to talk for the first 5 minutes, and then you don't get to talk anymore.
So
Right.
You're good for the initial ideas and the fleshing out, but you get after a certain point you get weird.
Well, I'm the creative consultant.
that's why
Unpaid.
No, well, Bob,
creative
no, this makes
consultant.
perfect sense. That's why she's a consultant because we then disregard half
Yeah,
of
we
her answers.
have consulted, and we're like,
Do we have like horns or anything?
Nah.
Do they have natural weapons, or do they just?
I think
They'll
they
have
typically
simple
how they
weapons.
fight is they
Bare knuckle boxing, bro.
they punch with their hoofy.
I'm there.
Back
I'm there for that.
But I'm
Well,
also
and then they
thinking,
also had the with their tail. I'm thinking it's more like a flat kind of a.
what if they use slings
Ooh,
and they
boys.
their back arm is what they use the sling, so they can like be like.
Well, yeah, but you also got to be able to use that thing for.
Well,
if you're
that's
targeting.
where your choice. do you want to
Well, yeah,
defense
you
or do you
know,
want to
like,
offense?
Yeah. But I'm also thinking, like, they've got that belly
Like a
pouch.
javelin too.
Oh,
with
they
that
could,
thing.
yeah. Maybe that belly pouch, they will put stuff in there, like
Yes.
a piece of metal in their pouch
Ooh,
is
it's
almost
like
like
armor?
as like armor to kind of. And maybe that's a thing. Like maybe in their culture, like you become a man when you get your ceremonial
Plate.
plate to go in your pouch, kind of deal. Maybe that's a thing because they don't have access to a lot of metal, so they can't because they're plains people. And so they don't have a lot of trade goods, maybe. So
But the
get some
tree,
metal.
they use they start with some big fat tree pieces, bark,
Yeah.
and then like once you defeat,
We could go like full
Enemies.
Saranian, where like they have really good ways of like using resin on wood to like make it super
Yeah.
strong and
Silk.
light,
Yeah.
so that they don't have to.
Yeah.
I love
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. Wooden weapons.
Yeah,
I like it. And bone weapons.
obviously.
Yeah.
But that's for magic weapons, Bob, because you use the bones of your ancestors
Ooh.
with shamanistic runes carved into them to give.
The head of each of these like herds makes his weapons out of the other like the people that try and come up and take over his herd. He uses their bones.
Do we want to do that though? Because I was thinking more like you have your ancestors
Their
that pass
ancestors'
down
You
in
don't
the
use
long.
your enemy bones.
Yeah, you
You
use
like- you
because they
like-
give
Use
you
the strength of your family.
exactly,
Okay,
and
I like
also
that.
they
like that.
their souls are actually attuned to these things, so they can give wisdom on occasion and stuff like that.
Your
Also,
enemies just lay in the field and get picked apart by birds.
also the older your family, the more items you have, so the stronger you'll be. So
Yeah.
like the more prominent families have been around forever, and they continue to go stronger.
Yeah.
Where the fuck did this come from?
I don't know. I like it.
Better races, better pizza, Papa John's.
All right.
Papa Bob's.
On that note, Ryan's going to draw this up for us. I know he is.
Ooh, I hope it's a hot dog Thomas the Tank Engine.
God, I hope it's not Hot Dog Thomas Tank Engine.
Please don't.
Ryan.
I tell you what, draw.
Or Ryan, draw them both.
Yeah, I was going to say. I tell you what, draw a real one and show me and Bob, and then draw
Yeah.
Hot Dog Thomas Tank Engine and
God.
show it to.
Tanya over there
think
drinking the
about
hot
them
dog flavored
standing up.
water.
Yep. God.
All right. So on that note, God, in the coming week, as you roam the plains with your third arm, whirling
That
your
Bob was
sling.
originally really against, but now it's kind of digging.
No, I'm still low key against the odd numbered lens, but we're making
makes
it work.
sense,
We're making
though.
it
But
work.
see, that's how you show the most shame is you chop their extra hand off.
Oh. You are just so evil.
You don't kill your, if someone has to be excommunicated, you just chop their extra hand off.
You bite it
Oh
off.
my God, that's so. Why? And you wear it around your neck, just like Jamie Lannister. Oh.
Ugh. God.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, that's
Man.
how. That's instead of cutting your hair, you cut your arm, and maybe the extra arm regrows eventually. You get
maybe.
baby legs.
I was with you till baby. Move on.
All right.
What the
God.
fuck?
In the coming week, as you roam the plains with your three arms, I hope that you battle your rivals effectively with the strength of your ancestors, and may you find the choicest fruit of the tree, and may the blessing of the beard be upon you.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Books, Beards, Booze. Our co-hosts are Bob, Derek, and Tanya. Our producer is Bob. For more information, visit our website, booksbeardsbooze.com. Follow our social media at Tales by Bob. If you enjoyed this podcast, please rate, subscribe, and share. Okay, bye.